Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Drama remains everywhere in the Call of Duty scene right now, and this time it's Standy and Octane versus some pro teams skipping practice and torching time for the other pro teams, reckoning that some teams are suggesting that they've got content to do, whereas the reality is they don't, and they're just actually not committed enough to deliver the practice that is required to be the best team in the game. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. If you guys haven't seen this clip before, as I hadn't, this was brand new to me that I just saw, well, this morning actually when I woke up. There was a certain individual in the blue shirt here that you guys may or may not recognize. Now, I believe at the time of this video, he was probably 13 years old, because this is Advanced Warfare in 2015, and Scrappy is attending what might be his first ever local LAN. Funny to think about, right? That back in, when I was 13, I don't know what I was even doing. This guy was turning up to locals talking trash. I mean, look at him go. He's absolutely out of control, and it's funny, they look at the scoreboard here. These guys on the other side are down at what, 30 to 247. So yeah, Scrappy was absolutely frying these kids, and this is Advanced Warfare, right? 2015. So I mean, look, he still looks kind of young today, largely because he is kind of young. I think he's only like 20 or maybe 19 or something like that. And 7 years ago, he was like 13 and still just frying kids at locals. So I mean, just absolutely hilarious, to be honest. He was even talking trash here and saying, I'll play the clip at the end of the video, but he was talking trash saying like, I'm just going to hit that 10-second scrap timer. I don't even care. I don't think he was swearing at the like he would nowadays, but it wasn't far. I mean, look at this trash talk. It's just absolutely quality stuff. Speaking of Scrappy here, I thought this is funny from Insight, because one of the scariest AR duos theoretically coming into this weekend, Sir Scrappy, like here he is, and then Scrappy responds with this, which is what Insight's rocking, and then Octane replies with this one. We're just focusing in on these boots, right? It's pretty funny, right? Because obviously people talk about Insight being an Iron Boots AR. He stands still, doesn't really move around too much, and then, you know, he's rocking the Iron Boots IRL, so I thought that was quite nice to see. Also, a quick note for a competition you guys may or may not want to enter. Method is giving away an official Call of Duty television, so the TCL something or other. This is how you do it. I wasn't going to mention it, but I thought I would, just because Breaker Point replied with their two friends you've got to tag being CDL Pal and Hydra, so this drama kind of continues on that side of things. But yeah, if you guys want to get involved, I just thought I'd let you know that is going on for the, well, for the next few days or so. A couple of quick snippets here you guys might find interesting going into the major. There's been 300 point club games so far in this title, and all of them have been on the hotel map, so it does seem like that game has, or that map game mode kind of combination has the highest win rate when a team starts off very well. Actually, as he goes on to say here, Money Hill stats, it has the highest win rate when winning the first hardpoint. So if you win the first hardpoint, get more time than your opponent, you win the game 67, you know, 2/3 of the time you're going to win. Every other map is 50, and a Hydro is 30%, so you actually don't want to win the first hardpoint on Hydro based on the data set that we have so far. And also this with Major 1 coming up, there are a few players that have a pretty crazy 1KD plus tournament streak going into Major 1. Dashy and Cell are tied for 12, Hydra is on 10 in a row, Awakening on 8, Pred, Attached, Skies, Octane and Drazah, so pretty crazy stuff. Now, Scump's record, I don't know what the the all-time list here looks like in terms of streaks of 1KD plus, where you turn up. Scump's record is something like 45 events or something crazy like that. I think I saw on Reddit they were putting it as 48, but there was some event in World War II that he had a 1.00 KD, but he actually had 425 kills and 426 deaths, so he was technically negative, even though when you kind of do the calculation it comes out to 1.00, but the streak was still ridiculous, like all the way from Advanced Warfare, or maybe even Ghost, like through the entire Jetpack era, he went for like 40 plus events with never going negative. Like that is one of the craziest streaks and stats you're really ever going to think about in COD history. The fact that Dashy and even Cellium are only at 12 given their playstyle and their role, Scump was able to do it for like 4 years in a row with an SMG is like absolutely ridiculous. So anyway, these are that part of the statistics going into this season, and there's been some frustrations with the game, certainly from Crone about the snaking, from Cellium and others, right? It's not just Cellium that uses it nowadays. Now look, you could argue that Cellium kicked it off, and now the other pros are like, you know what, I'm just going to snake everywhere. This is the whole Samuel Jackson, you know, I've had enough of these snakes on this plane. But the other point that some pros have been bringing up is the practice that's going on behind the scenes between some of these pro teams. We saw Kenny say the other day, it might have been in this video, it might have been in another video, where he basically called out Pred and said, hey, why aren't Seattle Surge turning up on time? We're here to warm them up for their Pro League match, and they're not even turning up. Like, what is this about? Pred's late again is basically what they were suggesting. Now, this isn't a new phenomenon in Call of Duty. The pro teams turn up late for scrims, they torch time a little bit. There's been some premium time torches, you know, Crim 6 was certainly one of the big ones back in the, well, 2021 season in Cold War, when, you know, I think Rambo was getting really frustrated with him barely turning up on time whenever they had matches and stuff. Now, Standy has been talking about this from the Toronto side, one of the strongest teams so far, suggesting suggesting that there's certain teams that are, you know, they say they're going to turn up for scrims, they say it's all good to go, yeah, we'll scrim you at 3 p.m. Eastern or whatever. Turns out they then cancel the scrim just a few minutes before and they say, oh, sorry guys, we've got content, it's not going to happen. He reckons that's actually an excuse and saying that, okay, maybe some teams do actually have content, but maybe one of the players woke up too late or didn't turn up or they're going to do something else and decided to cancel the scrims, frustrating Toronto and Standy and other teams that are kind of the victims of this as well, but also showing that how committed are actually some of these players if either they are prioritizing content over scrims or they're just making up that as an excuse so they don't have to practice as hard. Like, you know, it is their job at the end of the day to actually play Call of Duty.
But how are people like showing up late to that? Because that, I feel like that conversation in particular is super important, right? You want to figure out what you're focused on, like the 1 or 2 things you want to super focus on a day. Like, are people showing up late to that? Because that kind of would blow my mind. Then
honestly, Ben,
it's not to get better.
Some people just always got content, bro. I don't know. I don't get it. They just always have content.
Yeah, no, see, that's weird too. That people are filming content unless you think they're lying. Like, was that sarcasm? You think
it sounded sarcastic to me?
It sounded sarcastic, but like, I don't know, man. There's like, even with scrims being chalked, I feel like there's just like I know some people are busy, but like, I feel like there's definitely like certain days that like, damn, like scrim got chalked again, bro. Like, come on.
That's so funny. What the hell? Did we scrim? We played Minnesota and we scrimmed OpTic on 1 map. We were supposed to play OpTic in a full best of 11, but they didn't want to do that, so we didn't. It was really cool. Why did they chalk it? Because we were supposed to play S&D and they said no S&D at like literally 10 minutes before our scrim was supposed to start, and we said we would really like to play S&D, that would be nice, and they said no, so we watched S&D VOD.
And the other clip I showed there, right, was from Octane, where he talks about, you know, his feelings about OpTic over the last few weeks. So Standy's point is quite interesting. You know, what do you guys think? Do you reckon that some teams are kind of lying and he was being sarcastic about prioritizing content? Or do you reckon that certain teams are coming up and saying, hey, yeah, today's content day? I don't really buy that as an excuse necessarily, just because surely teams have like a content day. That's usually how the teams do it, right? They'll say, okay, Tuesday or Sunday or I don't know, whatever. That's the content day. That's the day we're going to film some content and some fun challenges with some sponsors and this type of stuff that usually goes up on the YouTube channels for some of the teams. So you'd think that they would have that planned out such that if they did have a content day or they did have some content coming up, they wouldn't just schedule it in the scrim sheet with the other teams. They would say, yeah, we're not scrimming that day or we're going to scrim at a different time or whatever. The fact that they're cancelling last minute does understandably from Standy's point of view seem a bit fishy in terms of their reasoning behind it. The other thing is the OpTic thing that Octane was talking about, right? So of course, you know, they played each other just a few days ago. OpTic went down 3-1 in that series, and they were trying to seemingly practice some search and destroy going into the major, right? And OpTic were keen to do what they tend to do nowadays for scrims sometimes, especially when they're not streams, is do a best of 11 and just play like all the maps between each other and make that work. Now, often the teams like to play some search and destroy in that best of 11. LA Thieves wanted to play some search, right? Because they, I guess, wanted to prep their search and up their search game, which has been looking okay, but not spectacular. Like, I think really last season, that was their key weakness. Octane and the Los Angeles Thieves guys, when Octane dropped the double donuts, didn't he, back in last year in Vanguard before they somehow came good at the end of the season. But it was their search and destroy that was woeful for a long time before becoming arguably the best search team in the game at the end of the year. So clearly LA Thieves think that upping their search and destroy ability is going to be key if they actually want to, well, succeed this season and deliver results as they have done before. And they wanted to get some practice in against OpTic. But OpTic say, no, we're not doing that. We're absolutely no way we're ever playing some search and destroy against you guys, which is pretty interesting. So it's not like they necessarily, I mean, I don't know, it's interesting from Octane's point of view because he says that there was an understanding there that they would be playing search before OpTic then changed their mind, said no, we're not playing search. These wanted to play search, and then they just chalked off the scrim because then I guess Thieves wanted to watch the VOD and stuff, and then OpTic were kind of left in the dust without any scrims and any practice to play, which, you know, you can understand it, right? You're going into the first major of the season. It's a very important event, obviously, as every event is. You don't really want to give away anything necessarily to other teams teams to other top teams, especially on the search and destroy department, given the fact that OpTic probably think that, you know what, matching up against Thieves again in this tournament is pretty likely. If OpTic had a scrim set up against, I don't know, a team like LAG, maybe OpTic feel like, you know what, LAG, we don't really reckon we're going to match up with them, at least in a crucial part of a tournament. Let's maybe play them in some search and destroy so that they don't get any insights on what we like to do. And this is the difficult thing, right? Because respawns, you can play against other teams, and okay, one team might get some information on what their break-off tends to be on certain hardpoint maps, but, you know, you don't really get much more than that. It's kind of just a scrimmage, right, where you're practicing and just kind of practicing breaks and holds and rotations and stuff like this. Search and destroy, it is more strats dependent, and you don't really want to be giving away anything to another team that could potentially benefit when it comes to the main event. That's why often at like last season, right, the Texas Nation team with aBeZy and General and Havoc and Kismet or whatever it was at the time, they would often scrim the OpTic main team in search and destroy in other game modes because, like, you know, they weren't playing in the CDL, therefore they could get some great search and destroy practice in OpTic and other teams that did similar things as well. That's one of the benefits of having an academy also, that, you know, the LA Guerrillas main team could just play their academy to get their search and destroy practice and doesn't have to worry about giving any information away to the other top teams. So who do you think's right on this? I don't know. Octane, of course, is going to give his point of view, saying that he, you know, OpTic basically just chalked off the scrim, despite the fact that there apparently was the understanding there that they would be playing search and destroys, or like, you know, obviously we don't really know both sides of this story, but nonetheless, it does strike me as kind of strange and interesting that plenty of these teams are either prioritizing content, because we know that FaZe has been coming out with a fair bit lately, like, okay, we've got MC Mondays here they're doing now with Cellium as the host. Cellium is honestly a really funny guy, but you don't often get to see it in some of the content. So cell hosting, I think, is a good idea here by FaZe, and this is a pretty entertaining video. But yeah, obviously FaZe are trying to do both right now, a bit more content maybe than they were doing in previous couple of seasons. Maybe that's who Standy's getting at. And even Drazah says the other day this game is dead, basically saying that the pros aren't committed to playing 8 and other stuff like that. So kind of adding more fuel to the fire of the possibility that some of these players and teams actually aren't anywhere near as committed as they should be, not just to scrims and practice, but also to 8s and search and destroy tournaments and stuff. And maybe that's why in the long term, teams like maybe Thieves, teams like maybe Toronto are going to separate themselves, because maybe they're the teams putting in the most time at the moment, at least based on our understanding as it presently sits. Very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Thought this is kind of funny here because Parasite will be at the venue this weekend, pretty exciting. I think he's there for the flank primarily, but also gets to coach his team tonight, which I believe is currently ongoing over on Twitch right now. If there's no broadcast delays and issues, there'll be matches happening over there right now in the challenger side for the play-in, for the group stages, for the major. But you know, Parasite and Sasha, get them up on main stage. That'd be entertaining. And just to finish out with this, because people were putting together their all-pro first team going into Major 1, what do you guys think about this team here? So Clear Connor puts this together. To me, I think Scump has got to be here. I would put Afro here for sure as well. The thing is, I want to put a seam in here, but I can't really find, I don't know, maybe I have to put a seam in instead of Afro, but I don't know. I feel like Afro deserves it on his performance. Scump deserves it as well, so it's kind of tough in terms of SMGs, who you put where. I also might be tempted here to put Scrappy in, maybe instead of Insight, because Insight was pretty good, but in his first series, he wasn't so good, so I don't really know what I'm doing there. And then maybe Cellium, like, okay, Cellium's numbers are just ridiculous, so I guess you kind of have to put him in. He drops a 1.3 every series. But this team or any similar combinations would not be a duo you'd want to face. I mean, Afro and Scump right now would be a disgusting pairing, I'm sure, on the SMGs. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
Yo, Scrap, talk crazy.
What are you at now?
I got 10 kills.
Idiot!
Scrappy, talk crazy to them. Let them know. Let them know.
No, don't.
Let them know. Look at them.
I'm pushing 10 seconds. I don't even care.
You got to go first kid out.
At the turret field.
You still got mid game. They're not even playing no more. Scrappy the Don is my son.
Up there, buddy. And you're dead.